Good morning, afternoon, evening. Welcome to another edition of the best DFS show that just happens to start at 8 Eastern Standard Time. My name is Rob Diamond, Rad Rob Diamond on Twitter, Sir Robert 6 on all the main sites. Welcome to another NHL breakdown, Tuesday, October 30th, 2018. It's hard to believe October is almost over. We've got a massive slate tonight. I'm incredibly excited for it. We've been slamming NHL slates, so let's just jump right into it right away. Excuse me. We're already starting with the coughing and the crapping. I think there's tons of value tonight. All across every position, you're going to be able to find 3 or 4 guys that you're going to be able to plug in every lineup, use as fills, get as some sort of value into some really high kind of cash cards, high floor, high salary cash cards. You can plug them entirely fill with these value plays and basically get whoever you want. So I'm really looking forward to getting to this today. So let's just jump right into it. As always, we will use the screen share here and pop that over, and hopefully that stops flashing. See. Didn't look good. Let's try that again. Just a sec here. There we go. That's better. Much better this time. In honor of the greatest goaltender, well, in honor of winning 20K tonight, DraftKings is the big GPP finally that I've been winning these tickets for that I've had no idea what they were any use for. Tonight, we get to use them. So I'm pretty excited for that. Going to win 20K. Got some Felix Potvin, the greatest goaltender in the history of the NHL, was clearly the greatest trapper form, which allows for maximum potential for snag and show at the same time, which is equally important whenever you're a goaltender. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that up there. New week, new desktop. So yeah, let's jump right into the slate right away. I'm super excited, like I said, for this slate. Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's start with the starting goalies. Pop that in here. Perfect. So, yeah, first game, we're going to have Detroit traveling to Columbus. This is a really interesting game because I don't think there's goalies on either side of the ice here. I know, like, if you've been following my videos at all, you've heard me talk about the Columbus goaltender situation, Sergei Bobrovsky, how he's not going to be a Columbus Blue Jacket after the season, and he's made it very vocally sound that he's not going to be a Columbus Blue Jacket. So I don't think his heart is fully into this every single game, and I think it also has been showing that he hasn't been the greatest goaltender in the league as one of the top 3 as he usually is. Yeah, I think this could be a potential game stack. We'll get there. New York Islanders are traveling to Pittsburgh. As always, the Pittsburgh Penguins are like the Manchester City in soccer to this in hockey. They're going to score 5-6 goals every game. So you have to kind of look at them, even though their salaries are atrocious and you really don't want anything to do with them. You really may not have an option because they're still going to fill out their salaries properly every single time. Next, after that is the Calgary Flames at the Buffalo Sabers. This is another game stack that I think is going to be absolutely flames, to be slightly ironic on the team. There's going to be 0 ownership on both sides of this game at the same time. I think Eichel's line will draw some ownership, and I think the top line in Calgary at the same time will draw some ownership. But yeah, I'll talk about this game a little bit. This is one of my favorite games the entire slate. 2 of my favorite lines. So yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Boston traveling to Carolina. This is a very interesting game because Boston are incredibly hurt at the back end right now, and they're traveling to Carolina. And Carolina, for anyone who may not be fully sound in the sport of hockey, Carolina are very well known for holding on to the puck. They don't lose the puck. They have a very high possession rate. And in past seasons, it hasn't really equated to very much. And this season, considering they've had no real goaltender for the past few seasons, they've been doing well enough. Scott Darling could be a real goaltender. He's just coming back from injury. I don't expect him to get the start against Boston. And honestly, Halak is one of my favorite goalie plays of the slate due to price and being on Boston and going up against an inferior opponent in Carolina. It has a lot of risk, but I think the win is pretty safe because if Scott Darling is in the net, that's basically a 4-goal game. And that's nothing against Scott Darling. It's just goalies coming back from really long injuries. You generally don't get going for 3 or 4 games. So I'm expecting Scott Darling's first game to be a bad one. And if it's against Boston, fair enough, we'll get some Boston people. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But in terms of this game, that's something to watch later on today. And again, if you haven't got the message, this is recorded at 8 Eastern Standard Time. Today, I believe it's coming at you a little bit earlier. Let's check the time. Yeah, about 5-10 minutes earlier. I tried to get going a little bit sooner than that. But in terms of the news, what I know, obviously the news isn't out for the day yet. So this is going off last night. And obviously Rask was confirmed yesterday, but Scott Darling is still up in the air. And that will be confirmed today. So that's something to watch. Dallas at Montreal. This could be really sneaky. It's got some really interesting value plays. We'll talk about that a little bit. New Jersey Devils at Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm not sure how to take this game. Part of me says that this is supposed to be a goalie game between Kincaid and Vasilevsky, and it'll be like a 2-1, 3-1 game. But another part of me says there's too much offense on either side to not have some sort of shootout scenario. Now, I don't know how good New Jersey are going to be away from home. We'll soon find out. They've basically, every slate we've got the chance to play them on this season has been a home game. So I'm interested to see how well they do at Tampa Bay. But yeah, I think this could be a sneaky goalie game. Fleury against Soros at the Golden Knights traveling to the Predators. This is another game stack that you're going to have to explore at some faction here, because Soros is letting in a lot of goals, and despite having a really strong start, and Marc-Andre Fleury, despite being a really good goaltender, is letting in 3 goals basically every single game for the past 4 or 5 games. So it's just a situation where we can look at stacking both, because like I said earlier, I think there's going to be a lot of ownership on certain parts of Nashville. There's going to be slight ownership on certain parts of Vegas, but when you combine them together, they're going to be really, really low owned, and could shoot out for 10, 11 goals very easily. Excuse me. Next game on the slate we have here, Minnesota traveling to Edmonton. Dubnyk against Cam Talbot. Minnesota played last night, so I think that this could add in a little bit of the way we build our process here today. And Philly is at Anaheim. Philly's probably the worst team in the league right now in terms of form. They've been on an absolute garbage run as of late, and a lot of that has to do with their abysmal goaltender situation, and it doesn't look good going up against the league's best goaltender tonight. Finally, the last 2 games here are Ottawa traveling to Arizona, another really sneaky game, and not for the goalies, though. Maybe one goalie, maybe Craig Anderson. And the final game of the night, Henrik Lundqvist and the New York Rangers travel to San Jose to take on Martin Jones and the Sharks. And very interesting that San Jose are one of the better teams in the league, with clearly one of the lesser talented goaltenders, and New York is one of the worst teams in the league with one of the best goaltenders. So a little bit of an interesting contrast there. But yeah, in terms of today, let's jump right into the slate. I'll bring over FanDuel too. Perfect. So yeah, we'll start right away with one of my favorite games of the slate, where we have Calgary traveling to Buffalo. Now, Calgary's in the middle of a pretty big road swing right now. So one part, it wouldn't surprise me here if they're a little bit tired or coming off of the swing a little bit. But in terms of value, there's tons of value to be had here on both sides of the ice. Calgary starting David Rittich. So we're looking at a scenario here that it's most likely if the Eichel line gets any kind of a positive matchup, we're going to be seeing an obscene amount of goals in this game. Now, that being said, he did have a pretty decent stretch there, but it was against the Rangers, and the Colorado Avalanche were pretty unhealthy during that game. So it wouldn't surprise me here to see another 4 or 5 goal game for Buffalo. And in converse to that, it's not like Carter Hutton has been a sublime goaltender or something this season. So I think you can go either way with this. Johnny Hockey's way too cheap at only 6.5K. You have to kind of jump over that. If you get the chance to in cash, you have to take the opportunity. It's not my first and like favorite cash opportunity or something I want to jump on, but in terms of just logic states, yes, this is a cash play because he's way too cheap for who he is and what he does, especially going up against the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I do believe I shouldn't have went there. Let's go. There's only 2 games last night. Yeah, the Flames did play last night. So yeah, again, this is another situation where they're obviously not going to be fully up for it. They're not a great team as is, especially outside their top line. So if Buffalo is able to get some kind of matchup here, they could really go off, like I said, for 4 or 5 goals. And Calgary could easily reply for 3 themselves because they're talented enough. So I think this game has tons of game stack options, just firing in both of the top lines. I really wouldn't jump too much outside of Monahan Goudreau for Calgary. And but for the Buffalo side, you can get in all 3, Skinner, Palmerville, and Eichel in without a problem. And in terms of defense, even if you wanted to go Giordano, Ristolainen, you can do that. Personally, I'm a little bit more on the Dahlin side for GPP tonight. I don't think he's viable from cash at only 3.6K. I know the salary says he's viable, but just Buffalo isn't good enough, and he doesn't have a good enough floor, nor really good enough ceiling to really be all that viable from that salary, considering there's people below him and above him that are in better situations. So for GPP, I really like Dahlin, but if I was going to think about something in terms of this game, it would definitely be the game stack and getting Ristolainen and Giordano in there as well. Obviously, I don't think you're going to be able to do that. That would be tough, really, right there. Anyways, in terms of cash, I really like this slate. I'm all over Jack Eichel in cash. He's one of my cash locks this slate. I'm glad he's in the first game of the slate because, as I mentioned, like David Rich is walking 4 goals here. So even Buffalo, and like he's been doing excellent. Even Buffalo again, basically getting all the shots you need for cash, getting points like you need for cash, getting decent minutes like you need for cash. Obviously, his minutes away from home have been better than they have been at home, but for the time being, I really wouldn't mind sticking some Jack Eichel in cash, only 7.1K this slate. Yeah, it's against Calgary. It's really hard not to play. Like especially just going down the list here. I'll talk about the rest of them too. But Jack Eichel is the cheapest smash spot for me this slate, and like nothing about Calgary warrants any kind of respect. Now, if you would like to play Ristolainen in cash too, I wouldn't talk you out of it. I think there's better options, but again, if you fall in 4.5 and you're not sure where to go with it, I think Ristolainen is absolutely fine for cash or GPP. One of my favorite GPP stacks is the Buffalo Power Play 1, which is the top line with Dahlin in there as well. I really have no issue with that. I think it's one of the sharper, cutting out middle stat. And I think that's one of the sharper stacks of the night. Excuse me. Or you can just take out Dahlin and put Ristolainen in there. And I know that's not necessarily the power play, but then you're more just converting to a line 1 partial D1 stack with the only really important D part anyway. So, yeah, in terms of this game, we can take a look on FanDuel as well, too, really quickly. Now, Jack Eichel is basically the same price over here, but you'll notice that the Calgary guys are fairly cheaper. So yeah, I have no problem going down the list. Johnny Gaudreau is actually a little bit more expensive than I thought he was. Sorry, that's up a little bit higher. But yeah, like once you get down below the 7Ks and lower, you're in cheap range. And yeah, Monahan, that's kind of where Eichel is over in DraftKings. He's a little bit more expensive over here. Same kind of range though. But yeah, Monahan's dropped to that partial range over here that I really like. But yeah, same idea. Eichel and cash and both sites. Just his salary in comparison to the other extreme salaries is very favorable. And like I said, whenever we start getting to the value guys and we start plugging them in, you're more than welcome to upgrade Eichel to whatever you want. If you want to take one of the Penn centers, by all means, take Malkin or Crosby instead of Eichel. I'm on Eichel tonight. I think he's going to absolutely smash from the salary on both sides. And that few $100 savings to 1,000 to 1,000 and more dollar savings, it really adds up whenever you start getting towards taking 2 value defense and potentially 2 value wingers. Then you can really just stack the rest of the way and go ham. So yeah, I'm into the concept here of a 5-3 win either way. I would much rather it be a Buffalo 5-3 win. I have a feeling it's going to be a Calgary 5-3 win. But like I said, I'm on the Buffalo side here. I'm not really interested in either goaltender. If I was to give one goaltender a positive check mark over the other, it would definitely be whichever goaltender Buffalo starts, whether it's Allmark or Hutton. Either or get a slight tick up for me just for a better shot at the win. But yeah, 5-3 Buffalo final, and Jack Eichel 2 goals and an assist. Second game on the slate, we have the New York Islanders traveling to the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is another game that I think has all sorts of interesting GPP intrigue because without question, the highest owned team of the night will be the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, I'm going to, for 2 minutes here, give you my case why you should probably play the New York Islanders in GPP. First of all, ownership. Second of all, Matt Murray hasn't been saving enough pucks to warrant any kind of concern. Same with the Smith. Neither of them have really been playing too well. Matt Murray's been decent enough in terms of keeping the scores low there. But, like, yeah, again, score low. You shouldn't let in 5 to Montreal. Like, I know that was before he got hurt and everything, but yeah, this concerns me in terms of I think they're coming in for a little bit of a letdown spot. As you can see here, they were away, and they're just getting home for the first game after a fairly lengthy road game swing. And these first couple of games after that road game swing are notoriously laggy for players. And there's one player in particular tonight that I'm fading at every possible opportunity, and it's Evgeny Malkin. Basically, from his salary, I don't like it. If you're going to ask me a personal level, I think he's flaky and extremely diva-esque, and he flakes off all the time and doesn't really try and take stupid penalties in these types of letdown games whenever Pittsburgh's either starting a road swing or coming off of one, and he's usually the first person to start pouting and not doing very well. So that's my first stand here tonight. I'm definitely fading Evgeny Malkin. Not so much Kessel, but absolutely Malkin, because I think he's more of a 4-point ceiling kind of player tonight than anything over 7, which I'm looking for. So yeah, sorry for. I hope I didn't offend anyone with my statements there, but I just really dislike the way Pittsburgh react to negative game script scenarios, and this is absolutely a negative game script scenario. Now, in terms of New York Islanders, again, quickly touching back on their salaries are dirt cheap. They're going to score at least a goal or 2. I'm not so crazy about the further away from the net. I like them. I think Barzal is really interesting in either format. Brock Nelson, I think, is an incredible GPP play tonight. Stacking him and Anders Lee, I think, is going to be super, super sharp, really low owned. We'll be going up against Malkin most of the night. So at the same time, too, I think he may get the opportunity in this negative game script scenario to get Malkin in an off game and really capitalize here for combining for 2 goals, being both part of 2 goals. So yeah, I really like that stack in GPP, Nelson and Anders Lee. And you can combine that with Buffalo and then come heavy with a couple of San Jose defenders, for example, and a real goaltender. Or, basically, I think there's a lot of value lines you can stack together this slate, which will allow you especially to spend up a defender. And it's not necessarily that I think there's a ton of excellent plays at defender. I just think spending up a defender, especially in GPP, this slate isn't going to be happening a lot with the extreme salaries and ownership that we have in the center position with the Pittsburghs and the McJesus and the McBergeron and that's where he is, the Eichel. I was like, where is he? I can't find him. But yeah, in terms of the Islanders, I really like Brock Nelson and Anders Lee as a stack in GPP. Low owned, a lot of upside. Just a really, really cool script. Now, in terms of Pittsburgh, they aren't completely void of a situation here. In fact, they possess what's probably going to be my number one and number two cash plays tonight. Now, you will notice a little bit different on the top line here. Dominic Simon is playing on the top line, and he's also getting power play too. Considering this is the Pittsburgh Penguins, considering he's less than 3.5K, he's an absolute cash lock this slate. And basically on either site, you can put in Simon, and you know that he's going to get exposure all the time to excellent goal-scoring opportunities, because I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. The New York Islanders don't have a goalie. I don't care how well they've been playing so far this season. They're literally what's the antithesis of what an NHL goaltender is supposed to be. I'm sorry, it just isn't. I'll talk about these guys in a little bit, but this isn't something to shake a stick at. Like losing to Florida, anyways. I'm not going to touch too deeply on the goaltender, especially for the Islanders. I don't like them. Either whichever, Leonard or Grice, whichever starts. But in terms of Matt Murray or DeSmith, they're way too unpredictable for either format for me, because I still like the New York Islanders an awful lot. So I'm really not on either goaltender here. I don't necessarily think this is a game stack, because I think the Pittsburgh Penguins will draw so much ownership, and they won't hit a ceiling necessarily correlative to their salaries. They'll still probably win the game, like maybe 4-2, but they're going to need 5-6 goals to pay off from that 7.9 and 7.3 7K salary stuff. So yeah, and like, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you that New York Islanders can't win the game. I absolutely think they can win 4-2 and completely crush everyone's dreams. Like, try and tell me when you look through after this slate, this doesn't look like a situation where the Penguins are going to crap on everyone's dreams and be super high owned, because like every Austin Matthews and John Tavares ownership is going to go on to Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, because it's all people know. It's all they understand to do next is just to click on those names following the Toronto options. So yeah, I think the Islanders could surprise a lot of people here. Definitely wouldn't try them in cash, but the situation in Pittsburgh right now, the other really incredible play, sounds like Chris Letang won't be playing tonight. If that is the case and Chris Letang sits out, I think Jack Johnson maybe end up jumping up here and could be really interesting from 4.4K, though I very much definitely prefer him on FanDuel immediately before any kind of uptick in situation. 3.6K is way too cheap, even before we consider that he may all of a sudden get all this extra situations. But rumor on the street, according to DraftKings, Ricola will be playing in Letang's position, and not only that, take over his power play minutes as well. And if that happens, 2,500 on any team on a first line is a free play. On the Penguins, it's an absolute must play. Just like Simon, you may have to play both these guys in cash just because their salaries are so absurdly, what my word is, egregiously underpriced, the pair of them. Now, I'm not so keen on Ricola on FanDuel. Not sure how cheap he is over here. Probably is. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if FanDuel don't even have him. Or II. There he is. Okay, I take it back. Sorry, FanDuel. I take it back. I take it back. 3.6, 3.5. So yeah, it gives you an idea. If you need that extra 100, by all means, just drop down to Ricola if he is playing in Letang's positions. Basically, this is why I was so excited about this video today and this slate, because it gives everyone a really good idea and definition of what is a cash play in a DFS hockey. So basically, one of my meta foundation rules all the time is the players have to play in either the first line, second line, or third line, and the power play, first or second line power play. If they don't immediately check those two boxes, you basically have to X them out of your process. Now, there are some exceptions to this where players will block 100 shots or play an absurd amount of minutes on the penalty kill or take a ton of shots and make themselves viable from really low salaries on a slate to slate basis. You may be able to pick this guy, but not touch him again for another 4 or 5 slates, even though he's at the same salary and even though he's in the same role. So yeah, I'm really excited about this today because I get to show you guys a lot of different viable cash plays that really drive home the definition. And if Simon is playing first line, second line, that's massive ups. Like if there's a scale, like if you can imagine this, something I like to compare it to is if there's any poker players out there that watch this, there's a very popular poker book with a chart in there that shows you what you can basically play off the flop, which is before you make any decisions really when you first get dealt your cards. And basically this chart shows you all the most viable to least viable hands to play when you first get dealt the hand. And ideally, you're looking for the pocket aces, AK, pocket kings, ace queen, that kind of thing. And that's how I look at these selections here. So like the guys that play first line, that are the best players, that are on the best teams, that play the best kind of roles and do the best things are in the very top corner of the pocket aces, you know. And then the further down you go in terms of this guy plays second line and does okay things, you know, you're going further down. And then you get to someone like Wayne Simmons who plays third line, first line power play, so he may kind of find his way closer than other guys who play second because he's on such a good power play. You get where I'm going with this. Like after a while of playing NHL, you're going to be able to look at these players and instinctively know where they fit on that graph for you as a viable play. And the closer you get to the pocket aces, the better of a cash play they are. And sometimes why I'm bringing this up is because it's considered in poker off the flop. If someone goes all in, obviously your first assumption is that they have pocket aces. So the best hand that you can possibly call with is ace queen, because theoretically either they would have pocket aces, pocket kings, or ace king. One of those 3 best hands. That's the only, or they made a really stupid decision. So like that's really like the 3 main hands that you would assume someone really smart would go all in with. And so your only out is to take an ace queen, because that queen is the only player you know will be the difference maker when it comes down to laying the cards out and wondering what they have, because you're assuming they have ace, you're assuming they have a king in their hand, at least if not 2 of either of those. So like I said, a lot of times you have to take a Dominic Simon for that crazy value, because no one else will be on him, and it allows you to get to that pocket ace at the same time. He may only be a 10-9, but it's a suited connector. Do you know what I mean? If you're any poker fans out there, so he may not be like the sickest hand going in here, but he's that queen. He's that different card that is going to allow you to have an out. And so is Ricola, especially at 2,500. That takes him up to like a king queen. Like, honestly, if he's playing first line on the Pittsburgh Penguins, it doesn't matter who he is. His role is so tremendous that from that salary, he's just set up to absolutely smash the slate to bits. I know he won't do that, but like theoretically, that's just giving you an idea where you should be drawing a lot of your cash plays from. So as we go through here today and I start naming off players, try and imagine where they fit in this graph in terms of viable players. Are they pocket aces? Are they a 4-5 offsuit, a 7-2 offsuit, completely useless? Or do they have some value? You know, are they a pocket tens or an 8-9 suited? Something interesting like that. So, yeah, a lot of this has to do with salary for me and just general role. So, like, the more these guys check the box and the cheaper they are, the more likely I'm going to go with them. And on Pittsburgh, in cash, you just have to do this. It's not an option. If this was the Calgary Flames and this was happening, we could at least consider, but on the Pittsburgh Penguins, they're probably going to score 5 goals every single night. So, like, there's no reason not to immediately look at these two. So, yeah, I know a lot of people are going to be thinking about Kessel and the Crosby and the Malkin and the Gensels and the Letang if he plays, and just go with the Simon, go with the Ricola, and walk away with your 5 fantasy points, 6 fantasy points combined between the pair. And if you get anything more than that and you have them in GPP, you're looking at potential takedown smash zone scenario. But again, this is cash. You just want to walk. Take your 3 each, take your 6 fantasy points, and walk away because you're going to be able to afford Eichel and lots of other interesting options. Sorry for droning on there, especially if you already knew all that. I do apologize, but that's just something that I'm very passionate about and need to be driven home. And I wanted to take the opportunity because I've been waiting and there really hasn't been a slate to get that out yet. So, yeah, and we can quickly look over here again. I don't think Ricola is – it's hard to say. I know Letang's not playing, but I just don't think Ricola is going to immediately jump all those rungs to play all his spots. I think it will follow Jack Johnson, who at the start of the season wasn't as impressive, but is very much so now. So, on FanDuel, I would go Jack Johnson, Dominic Simon, even if Letang isn't playing, and even if Ricola is getting extra minutes, I would still go Jack Johnson because he's been flames as of late, and that's just way too cheap for someone who's been playing so well. But on DraftKings, if Ricola is not getting all this extra love, I would just not play a defender from this game at all and just stick with Simon. But like I said, you can see that Jack Johnson, obviously, even against Vancouver, not getting any points and assists, a 1.5 isn't that bad, especially from 3.5K. Is it ideal? No, definitely not. You want at least 2 fantasy points, but like getting 0 would have been a disaster. So like you can see, he's had a decent floor now for a solid couple of weeks of play. So I have really no issue with Jack Johnson in either format. Use him as a fill, use him in cash, especially in FanDuel, but I prefer on DraftKings just Simon. I'm going to say Pittsburgh Penguin win 4-1. But at the same time, whichever goaltender starts for Pittsburgh probably won't see enough shots to make that 1 goal offset enough to really finish past the 6 fantasy points. Now, like I said, I do think the Islanders have a lot of sneaky upside. And like I said earlier, Brock Nelson, Anders Lee, one of my favorite GPP stacks of the slate. That'll be super sneaky. 4-1 Pittsburgh. Next game on the slate, we have the Boston Bruins traveling to the Carolina Hurricanes. And I don't want to spend too much time on this game because there isn't really a whole lot to talk about that isn't already known. I'll make a couple bold calls. My first bold call is that Brad Marchand will not be a Boston Bruin by the time Christmas rolls around. Not really DFS related, just something I'm throwing out there. I just get the sensation here from the Bruins that his time may be running out. He isn't playing at the same lights out scenario as he was in the past couple of seasons, and I feel like this may be a time. Either I'll take that back if maybe he's dealing with an injury or something like that. This just feels like a situation where someone needs a fresh start. So yeah, I mean, that's non-DFS. Sorry for bringing that out, but just something I've been noticing, thinking about the last few days. But really, the most important thing to talk about here is in this game is the Boston defense. And as you can see, absolutely decimated by injuries at the moment. And most likely what's going to happen here is that, first of all, Chara is going to play every first line of everything and probably not come off for the penalty kill the entire time. So I think Chara at 4.7K is super cash viable. It isn't something I'm really looking at from a GPP scenario unless you're fully stacking the Boston line one. And then in that scenario, you can absolutely take Chara with that too, because I expect, like I said, Chara to just jump up the boards here in terms of roles, because they don't really have anyone else to play. Greiselchuk won't be playing tonight, and Camphor already does line two. And if you're looking for, again, one of those super crazy, cheap, viable options tonight, definitely take a look at Steven Camphor for only 3.1K. Now, this is definitely something to look ahead of, ahead of time. But there's a really good chance with all of Boston's injuries tonight, Steven Camphor is going to be playing at least line two, if not more than that. And if he's line one, line two in any kind of combination, 3.1 is just way too cheap, plain and simple. Is he going to go out and get 50 shots and win you a GPP or whatever? No, absolutely not. But is he someone that's going to get you 2 to 2.5 fantasy points from 3.1K? That's absolutely all you need in cash to be able to afford all these other crazy guys. Now, like I said, Chara at 4.7 is also too cheap. But if you really want to spend down, Steven Camphor is going to be one of my favorite plays. But like I said, that's totally reliant on him getting line one, line two combinations in power play and even strength. If he's not getting that, if he's only getting even strength minutes, I'm not really interested in Camphor very much, just because he's on Boston in this type of game script where they're hurting really bad. I also really like Halak an awful lot too. Only 7.5K is too cheap. He's been playing another bold call. By the time Christmas rolls around, Halak's going to be the starting goaltender for the Bruins. It's the same scenario with Rask that I feel with Bergeron. Maybe it's because I'm an Adam McQuaid homer, and it just kind of feels that the culture's changing in Boston right now, and it feels like they're just beginning the shifts of a whole new dynamic change. And guys like Rask and Marchand are going to be looking for, I shouldn't say are going to be looking for, will be looking different on new teams here come the new year, just because of the way things are trending. If you really want to know where I think Rask could very easily end up in a place like LA, and the LA have another two goalie situation to try and make a cup run with, which has worked wonders for them in the past. But I'm just not sure what to make right now of the situation in Boston with all their injuries, because they haven't been playing very well. Pasternak's still doing his thing, getting tons of shots on net, but hasn't had a point in 2 games, and in 3 of his last 4 hasn't had a point. And the same can be said with we already looked at Marchand. Same situation for him throughout the entire season. He's only scored 2 goals all season. Now, I know he's not necessarily the hottest sniper in the league, but 2 goals is way too low. And furthermore, again, Bergeron at 7.5K for someone that 3 of his 4 games hasn't had a point, especially when you look at these teams Boston have been playing. Vancouver with literally no first line defense or forwards. Ottawa, who are, I'm not even going to talk about what's going on there. Philly, who are legitimately, like I said, the worst team in the NHL right now. They couldn't, this line couldn't score on that. They couldn't score on the Habs. like he's getting lots of points, like don't like fantasy points outside of not scoring. Like he gets a goal on that 3, and you're doing really well. You know, he gets an assist on that 2, and you're fine. You're not in a situation anymore. But like the fact is, they just aren't. And from these salaries, that hamstrings you that you can't take anyone else if you start taking Bruins players. So if I am going to use the Bruins anywhere, it's definitely going to be their second line in GPP of Krejci, DeBrusk, and Heinonen. I think that's super sneaky. I think it's been super sneaky for a couple weeks now. They've been playing really well and definitely been outperforming the first line of Boston. I think the first line of Boston is going to have a really tough matchup all game. So it really wouldn't surprise me if Boston does anything to get their love coming from the Krejci, DeBrusk, Heinonen line. Now, like I said, Chara and Kampfer are definitely my favorite plays of the slate, but I particularly like Kampfer if he starts seeing these bump up in roles that I expect him to see. But in terms of Carolina, there isn't really a whole lot to like here. I think Halak's been playing too well as of late to really target. Even if you don't want to take Halak as your cash goalie, that's absolutely fine. He's viable from that salary. I'm not saying he's the best cash goalie, but the fact is that whichever goalie Carolina starts is garbage. Mrazek's letting in 4 goals, even if he is starting. Darling's probably letting in 4 goals because he hasn't started a game in basically a year. So that's a hyperbole. But yeah, he hasn't played in far too long. Not cheap, not playing well enough in Falk. And someone like Slavin should be viable, but he keeps rocking off these 1.5 games that absolutely tarnish any kind of thing you're chasing in your cards, especially for cash. He plays the roles, and like a lot of my original cash builds this slate had Ferland in them because I know Ferland is way too cheap at 5.6. I think I'm going to keep him to GPP instead because I know Ferland's a good play at 5.6. I know he is. I know Ferland's a good play. I just don't know how to play him because I'm not really interested in stacking the Carolina Hurricanes. And of course, if you were to, it would be with the first line with Aho. But yeah, let me bring it up here. Cheap enough first line. My main issue is that it breaks up, and then Teravainen and Jordan Staal. And again, this breaks up here. Justin Williams goes to the top power play line, and Jordan Staal stays down. So again, Dougie Hamilton stays down, and Falk goes up. So it's just Carolina are not an optimal team to stack. Could they go out and do really well? Sure, why not? But is it something that you can convert into a DFS language that will speak to a success script? No, absolutely not. Like they just don't stack well at all. So yeah, I'm really not interested in Carolina there. But again, I'm Buffalo and Boston. Halak is too cheap over here as well in relative comparison to all the other goaltenders. You'll see he's just 100 cheaper than Carey Price. And I think he has a much better chance at winning than Carey Price does. And like I said, if you wanted to take a look at Kampfer, you can rip all the way down. Oh, I was like, why is there so many names that aren't in this game? There we go. Again, 3.5K. That's with the Ricola kind of like way too cheap nonsense. So if you're finding you need to spend up somewhere, take him out and put in Chara. Again, 4.3K is way too cheap, especially considering how hurt the Bruins are right now. Like they're going to be so reliant on him. I really prefer that in FanDuel. I think it's a much more viable salary to use on FanDuel than DraftKings, but in any case, he isn't my favorite cash option. It's just I know, kind of like Ferland, I know he's too cheap at 4.6. I know Chara's too cheap at his salaries on both sites because he's literally all Boston has. So yeah, that's my spiel in this game. I'm gonna say 3-0 Boston just to be a jerk, and Halak getting the shutout and finishing as the top raw points of the slate. Again, just because I want to be a jerk, but this game's kind of gross to me. It's really hard to pin because Carolina are a team that can control the puck 80% of the time and not score more than 3 goals and not take enough shots. So yeah, it's like neither team are super viable DFS options, which means chances are the winning card's going to come from this. So yeah, that's why I like the Krejci, Hine, and DeBrusk. Let's go. Yeah, 3-0, 3-1 Boston. For the win. And if Halak gets the shutout, he raw points the slate. Next game on the slate, we have the Detroit Red Wings traveling to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I'm going to keep this here. Eichel, Simon, Kampfer. We're going to delete that because what we want to do right now is just click this, and then do some of this. Don't even have to look at what you're clicking. Just go 1, 2. Then find Mantha. Mike Green. I don't suggest those salaries. They're pretty expensive. And then fill it out with a little bit of Boone Jenner because you're feeling tasty. You know what I mean? Look at that. Yeah. So just remember 4.9 just to keep everything industry friendly here. Let's just go take a real goaltender like, let's say, Martin Jones. So you're going to be left. Maybe you can't take Boone Jenner here. Oh, I want to see that. I'm going to have to put it in here just to see how it adds up. So yeah, there is someone that you can play in this spot. But you may have to just keep dropping the goaltender down until you find someone more viable. I'll get to that person in exactly 2 more games following this game. But yes, this game is loaded to go off. I like both sides of this game. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these players, including Boone Jenner. Basically, any Columbus line, stack them. The first line of a Dubois, Panarin, and Atkinson, get them as your highest exposure stack this slate. Jenner, Foligno, Anderson, mix in some Duclair. Incredible stacking options for goals this game. And conversely, you can just flip that to Detroit and take a quick look at Detroit. And they have some really interesting options. Now, I really wouldn't leave the first line, but like Larkin and Mantha are way too cheap and don't leave each other's side. And then you have someone like Mike Green who doubles down there too. So yeah, am I saying, yeah, play Mike Green in cash because he plays line 1, or play Dylan Larkin in cash because he's line 1? No, not necessarily. Now, conversely, am I saying play Pierre-Luc Dubois in cash because he's line 1, line 2? Yes, absolutely. And here's why. If you compare the two, oops, go back to center. 5.8, 5.9. One plays on a team at home that's going to win the game, probably worth 5 goals, and is not the worst team in the league. The second is a player on the team that hasn't really scored more than 3 goals more than a couple times this season, despite being all the team has. The salary on Dubois should be comparatively far greater than 100 in the difference. Now, this is kind of the Pierre-Luc Dubois scenario is that you can basically take him every single slate in cash. There's a few reasons for that. First of all, his roles and minutes. He checks the boxes. His salary is never going to be expensive, but the real reason you can take him in cash every slate is that very reason. Well, he plays well enough. He's playing really good, and his line happens to be absolutely arguably the best line in hockey right now. The real reason is because Columbus are never going to be the biggest favorite of the night, especially whenever you stack him up to the Sagans, Crosby's, Bergerons, McDavid's, Matthews's, Tavares's. He's never going to be the most expensive player, period. And when you compare that to how not great his team is, he's never going to even be relatively expensive. And again, you can just put him in your lineups, and from 5.9K until he starts getting over 6K 6K, then you have to start really questioning things. But literally, anytime he's below 6K and he's not playing the best defense in hockey, get him in your lineups. It doesn't matter what format, stack him, fill him. Use him in cash. He's just excellent. Now, obviously, I really like Eichel as well this slate. I'm not going to play Dubois and cash this slate on DraftKings. I think it's acceptable on FanDuel. The only reason I think it's more acceptable on FanDuel is due to again, salary. Like, there's literally no reason he should be cheaper. But more importantly is that in FanDuel, you can't take a third centerman. There's no option. There's no flex. So Dubois is going to be dirt ownership. Like, absolutely nobody's going to own him. And if he happens to raw points any of these big names that's ahead of him, like I already mentioned, how I think the Pittsburgh game could go under, how the Boston haven't been playing very well. They're going up against Carey Price. So, like, you get my point here. Dubois can really open up a ton of spots, especially if you're planning on taking a Panarin or Atkinson in cash. He just is instantly right there from the salary. So I really like it on FanDuel for cash. On GPP, on DraftKings, I absolutely wouldn't talk you out of it. But I do believe there's better cash center options on DraftKings than Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now, in terms of GPP, like I said, just stack that line as much as you possibly can. Don't stop stacking it. Literally, what I've been doing is not necessarily crazy max enter, but like the 3, the 5s on FanDuel, 5 entry maxes. I just re-enter the same Columbus stack over and over and over, and rotate a few random players outside of that. And then next thing you know, Columbus scores 5-6 goals and wins you the slate, and you finish 1st, 5th, 8th, 12th, and 16th, and you take home tons of money because you literally took down the top 20. So yeah, that's just the way Columbus works and why they're so viable in DFS. They're always going to be relatively cheap, except for their crazy wingers. But yeah, in terms of this game, I think it's going to shoot out. I think it's going to be 6-5 Columbus in overtime. I think Detroit will stick with them punch for punch the entire game. It'll be back and forth. I don't think there'll be a lot of goaltending, and if there will be, it'll definitely be on the Bobrovsky side. But this just screams the same Pittsburgh Penguin letdown spot. He has been playing well all season, and he just, to me, doesn't deserve, after letting in 4 goals back-to-back games, 3 before that, 8 before that. Like, hello, really? Like, this is who we're expecting to win a game from the top salary of this slate? There's just no way. There's absolutely no way. Do not play Bobrovsky this slate if you want to win money. Don't do it. And even if you do play and he does do well, like, you just spent 8.4K on someone who's seen 18 shots this game. So, like, yeah, I don't know. Lots of reasons for me not to play Bobrovsky. Lots of reasons to get in this game stack and get in some Detroit. Yeah, like I was saying, same situation over there. I love the Columbus defense. Seth Jones is totally cash viable, even from his salary. Again, when we're wanting to spend up, I don't know how many people are going to own Brent Burns this slate, or Klingberg, or Seth Jones, or PK, when they already own both Eichel and Crosby, or Malkin and Crosby, or Seguin and Eichel, or McDavid and Eichel, or McDavid, Seguin, and Crosby. You see where I'm going here. Like, people are, there's going to be so much ownership up here, so much ownership, that, like, everything else is just going to open up to us. So I don't mind, a little bit of that cheapness there, so you can spend up. Let's say 6. I'm going to stick to the 6-5 because I have a couple Columbus Detroit game stacks in the 20K to first place on DraftKings, the big tournament. So I'm going to stick with the 6-5 Columbus win, and let's say Panarin a hat trick. You know, let's go for it. Boone Jenner is going to get a goal and 3 assists. I keep forgetting to talk about Boone Jenner, and that's why he's such an awesome cash play every single slate, is because not only am I not forgetting to talk about him, basically everyone else is too. He's the exact same situation where he checks all the boxes, he does all the right things, and his salary is in the right place. Now, identical again to Dubois, as soon as he starts getting over 5K, we have to start asking these questions, but he fits into these pool of guys, especially this slate, generally speaking, the same group of guys that anytime they're under 5K, you have to take them. And there's more of them this slate. We'll look at more of them. But Boone Jenner is absolutely one of them. And already we're starting to build a card here that's going to allow us to really start spending up in some places with a 6.3 left. So, yeah, I'm really starting to like the looks of this card already. I hope you are too. Boone Jenner, get him into your cash cards, get him as a filler in GPP. He was a swing and a miss the other night, so I consider him to be hot goods on every definition because I see him coming back with a really strong game this slate against probably the league's worst goaltender in Jimmy Howard, or doesn't matter really who Detroit ends up starting in nets. Both of them are really bad. Bernier was never an NHL goaltender, period, let alone backup. So, yeah, Columbus are going to score a ton of goals, and if Bobrovsky doesn't show up, so is Detroit. 6-5 Columbus. Get Boone Jenner into your cash exposures. Next game on the slate, we have the Dallas Stars taking on the Montreal Canadiens at Le Bell Centre in Montreal. Lots of interesting ways you could take this game. Again, this is a game where you're going to have to check throughout the day and see what's going on because Dallas are doing some weird things with their lines, and frankly, it makes them one of the more viable teams of the slate. So I'm really excited about using some Dallas tonight. I'm hoping that Montreal will leave me alone and stop haunting me in DFS from slate to slate. I am taking some Carey Price just to hedge this and make sure that they don't continue to ruin my life. But I think Ben Bishop, if starts, is very viable to slate at only 7.5K. Montreal aren't, like, I know they've been doing well, but, like, come on, like, eventually here we have to stop and take a couple steps back. So basically from Dallas, there's a few ways you can go here. Lindell is always someone you can take when he's cheaper than 4K. He's always worth 2 fantasy points, which, again, under 4K is all you really need to make things viable. Plays lots of minutes, plays first line, I think even second line power play, so he checks the boxes. Yeah, all about Lindell this slate, especially for cash. I have absolutely no issue with it. If you decide to spend down on Lindell, even more, yes, it's possible. We're going to look at more spend down options and spend up more elsewhere because I have this build going right now and I don't really like it, and I know I'm going to change it because Tyler Pitlick, again, is going to be one of the better plays this slate from 3.6K. And like, I'm not really keen, especially if I fall on Ricola, doubling down on like 2 players that aren't the best 2 players on the team. That is my concern with Simon and Ricola as well. It just so happens they play on the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Dallas Stars are good, but they're not like, oh my God, that was 8-9 goals. How did that happen? Good. So yeah, I have no problem with Pitlick or Lindell. I'm definitely more on the Pitlick train. I think he makes for one of my favorite plays this slate, period. Not only cash, definitely for cash, but 3.6K is just so absurdly cheap. And it's the exact same situation over here on FanDuel where you can get your hands on Pitlick for like literally bare bones, nothing. So yeah, again, spending down on wingers isn't something that a lot of people do. So I think we're going to be able to pivot the high ownership from center, take a real goaltender, and spend down at wingers and have a really successful, unique card that's going to catch a lot of people. Because already here we have 3 guys that are all either checking all the boxes and playing in high-scoring games. So, yeah, I have no problem with this. Maybe not Camphor. I'm just keeping it in because his salary is so incredible and it lets you do some crazy things. So, yeah, in terms of Montreal, you can take Carey Price. I definitely prefer it on DraftKings over FanDuel. I think he's a little bit too expensive here on FanDuel. Not really the goaltender I'm looking to spend more than 8K for. But in this mingling 7.5-ish range on DraftKings, I really like Carey Price, especially for GPP. But one of my favorite stacks this slate, it's obviously ignoring what I have here already, is Jason Spezza to Jamie Benn. 4.5K and 6.8. Now, Jamie Benn's a little bit expensive, but he's completely offset by the Spezza salary. And why I really love this is Spezza also does the first line with Jamie Benn on the power play. So like you're getting a massive discount on someone like Jason Spezza, who just a little bit of narrative story, was always really good playing in Montreal. So yeah, I'm not so crazy about it for cash. But for GPP, Jason Spezza to Jamie Benn is one of my favorite stacks of the slate, period. Goes incredible taking either side of the Detroit-Columbus game with that. Incredible Pittsburgh options with that. I love the Eichel line with the Jason Spezza, Jamie Benn. Like, oh my God, talk about low ownership, high upside. Just incredible option there. And even if you want to be a little bit more risky, go the David Krejci, Heinen, and DeBrusk, and Jason Spezza and Jamie Benn. I just think these two, with Spezza's salary, open up all sorts of incredible stacking doors in GPP that really allow you to get in some neat names and some interesting stacks like the Columbus. Really interesting. So I'm not, honestly, I'll be straight up, I don't know how to take this game. If you really want my opinion, I think it's going to go to a shootout. I think it's going to be a 3-2 Dallas win in a shootout. It's going to go the distance. I don't see a big difference in here because the main thing is that instinct says Dallas are better. They're going to play better and win. But logic says Montreal have been playing so good this season and have been breaking my heart all season. They're just as likely to crap on everyone's Dallas ownership as much as falter and allow Dallas to go off. So yeah, 3-2 Dallas in a shootout. Get Pitlick into your cards. Lindell works as well, but I don't really like double down and against Carey Price at home. So I'd rather just stick to Pitlick. But if you're going to, I suggest one or the other in cash. But yeah, 3-2 Dallas. Next game, New Jersey Devils taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this game is downright terrifying to me. I'm not sure what to do. It like every aspect of this game speaks to me. Both the goaltenders are playing really well, and it really wouldn't surprise me if this only finished 2-1 on both goaltenders absolutely stealing the show. With Hedman out, you're going to have to take a Tampa Bay defender, especially in cash. Now, I shouldn't say especially in cash. It's just like they're so crazy cheap for being on the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know they're going up against the New Jersey Devils, but at least it's Tampa Bay at home. But yeah, it's just like so ridiculously cheap. All of them. Sergachev is too cheap at only 4.6K. He isn't my favorite. McDonough at 4K was like the first guy I noticed all slate of being like so absurdly way too cheap. 4K for someone who plays first line and either first line or second line power play, depending with Hedman out. Just like way too cheap. Is it my favorite cash play? No, but he's right up there with the pocket aces in terms of checking all the boxes and his salary and being in the right role. I just don't like going up against New Jersey because I'm so convinced this game is not going to shoot out. It just feels like such a low scoring game to me. But then like you have JT Miller playing top line. Taylor Hall's a cash god, and at only 6.7K, like that's so cheap. I know Vasilevsky's really, really, really good, and he stopped like what 51 of his past 53 shots he's faced, which is just mind-boggling. Well, good, whatever the word you want to use. So like yeah, I'm not looking to target these defender or these goalies. Despite these amazing salaries on like 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, like they're just too cheap. And maybe that's an indication we should try some, get them in some GPP. Like, when hasn't the Heischer, Palmieri, and Hall line won someone a GPP? And like, when hasn't Tampa Bay been an excellent one of the best teams in the league? So yeah, there isn't really, I don't have like a lot of particular plays or takes from this game like I do other ones, except for where I will be looking at defense again once more this slate, and it's Anton Strawman at only 2.9K. Just too cheap. I know he isn't putting up numbers or with a massive floor, but 2.9K, he can finish with a 0, and it's really not going to matter because everyone else that you should be able to afford in this structure we have right now will absolutely break the slate. So yeah, I'm not like entirely convinced Strawman's the play. Same with Camphor. I just want everyone to see their two salaries and understand how ridiculously cheap that is for someone like Strawman on a team like Tampa Bay. Now, I don't think he's getting power play. Excuse me. I know he's getting first line. I know he's getting penalty kill. Yeah, Sergachev jumped up. So like again, it's just too cheap. All those defenders are too cheap on Tampa. You're going to have to take one of them. Strawman's obviously the biggest value, but the most, and Sergachev is the most expensive, but has the least risk. So it just depends how you want to go with it. I honestly like McDonough the most of them all, and that's saying something because I don't really think he's a great DFS player. Like, yeah, it's just he blocks enough shots and takes enough shots that it just that 4K was like, that's too cheap. He's playing in Tampa, it's too cheap. But yeah, it isn't my favorite defensive option, but it's something to definitely consider. And over on FanDuel, it's basically the exact same situation with Vasilevsky being so absurdly expensive. And yeah, you can drop all the way down to Strawman if you want. But I've actually found a lot of my builds circle in the salary range of McDonough's is obviously more expensive over here too, but in the range of Sergachev and Chara, who's only 4.7 over here. I believe it's 4.7. 4.3, sorry. So yeah, I've been focusing a lot on that range for my defenders. I've been finding lots of names in there. So I have no problem with Sergachev and Cash over here. I just don't like targeting New Jersey, even though Tampa's at home. I think this game is going to finish 2-1 Tampa Bay, and nobody will prosper, whether it's a goaltender or an out player. No one will really do very well compared to their salaries. So, yeah, I'm going to be fading this game for the most part. And that I don't really feel good about that, but I think there's still going to be so much ownership in that Heischer, Hall, Palmieri line that if they don't score a goal, you could be really setting yourself up for a takedown whenever Pittsburgh go under as well. It's just I think there's a lot of sinkable ownership tonight. There's a ton of ownership that can go down with the ship, and if you're just if you're properly prepared with inflatables ahead of time, you could really set yourself apart. So yeah, I'm gonna say 2-1 Tampa Bay. I'm not keen about that. I'm probably still gonna game stack this just because there's so many incredible viable options. But if you want, the one place I definitely would look is the Tampa Bay defenders of Sergachev, McDonough, and Strawman. All three of them are viable this slate. Next game, we have Vegas traveling to Nashville. And once we have another game with no real goaltender prowess. Now you're like, oh, I'm pretty sure Marc-Andre Fleury is a good goaltender, Rob. Well, he let in 3 goals there, let in 3 goals there, let in 3 goals there. The team that doesn't score goals, he kept out. The Buffalo Sabres, he kept out. one of the worst teams in the NHL. He kept out again. I don't think 26 saves, super challenging. 26 saves, super challenging. No wonder he kept them to 1. Like, I'm serious. Fleury isn't a good goalie this season. Is he a good goalie? Yeah, I love Marc-Andre Fleury. He played his junior hockey in the league that's in my local area. So I'm all for Marc-Andre Fleury in terms of a real life goalie, but in DFS, it's just something we have to target. And Soros has been absolutely no better. Again, letting in 5 goals, letting in 3 goals, letting in 5 goals, shutout Edmonton. Which was a pretty good game, but that was the end. That was when Pecorino got hurt, and after that, it's just been an absolute disaster for him. We should be looking at a 4-3, 3-3 game here minimum from either side. So, yeah, I think there's tons of options in terms of both formats. You can put in the Carlson, Marsha show. Is it Tuck that's playing up with them right now? Can't remember. Riley Smith, sorry, Tuck's in the second line with Walla. With the Smith, who's way cheaper compared to the rest of them, I still think that's for a reason. But if you were to get my opinion, I think Vegas are way too expensive. Marsha show at 7.3K. Ooh. He hasn't been doing that good in terms of floor to deserve that kind of salary. Like, usually when you're up in that salary range, it's because you have an incredible floor to go with your digs. But in terms of, I think you can game stack. Like I said, one of my favorite lines again to stack with, I think, is another super viable line this slate is the second line of Nashville. Kyle Turris and Craig Smith is usually where I'd cut it off at. But you can put in Jarn Krok if you want to be super fancy. But yeah, I'll just keep it to the Kyle Turris and Craig Smith. I think they both work out really well. And if you wanted to, what you could do is go Kyle Turris, Craig Smith, and Fiala, and try and get a second piece there, or either Arvidsson or Forsberg. Just like try and fill in another line to the Turris, Craig Smith. Now, I know they don't stack supremely together. I even have a couple stacks where I have a full Nashville stack of Johansson, Turris, Craig Smith, Arvidsson, and Forsberg together. Obviously, you can't take the defenseman in that situation. But yeah, I think Craig Smith is very viable this slate for cash. Again, like I said, he's one of those crew cash plays. You can play every slate when they're below 5K. So I have absolutely no issue with that. And again, if you want to spend up a defense, this is the first place I would start with PK Subban. He's just been playing really well lately. Obviously, still putting up lots of points despite having not the greatest floor that was there for a few games. But he has everything you need in terms of Nashville. Isn't my favorite Nashville play. I do like Craig Smith a lot more. But yeah, get Craig Smith into your cash cards this slate, along with any other of the wingers I have here. And the same with FanDuel, exact same situation. We're just not spending up a winger this slate. And there's nothing really wrong with spending up a winger. It's just how I plan on attacking this slate. I feel like this is the most viable way to really go about it. But for GPP, obviously, you can spend up. I just like this for cash. I think both goalies are garbage. There should be at least 3 goals each. I'm going to say 5-3 Nashville with an empty net goal as their 5th goal. I think there's lots of sneaky low-owned plays to be had in this slate. If you like, so you want to game stack this game to the 9s. I think it'll definitely be the lowest owned game of the slate and could just as easily shoot off as any other game. Because I'm serious, these goalies are both really bad on both sides of the net here. Let's go 5-3 Nashville empty net goal. Next game on the slate, we have the Minnesota Wild on a back-to-back. They just played last night, and they will be playing against the Edmonton Oilers tonight. I'm not looking at any of Minnesota tonight whatsoever. I think them on the back-to-back is extremely suboptimal, considering they're not really a super offensive team as is. I think Clefbaum's interesting for either format, but other than that, I'm not interested in the Edmonton players in general. Basically, this slate, take McDavid with Eichel. Easily the best cash combination this slate. No question. Any way you want to look at it, you're getting the raw points combination, the ownership, a little bit of salary discount with Eichel, both at home, both playing teams that really shouldn't be up to it. Both of the other teams, I mean, aren't up to it because they're both on back-to-backs. They're going to get matchups to the nines. I can't see how McDavid doesn't tear Minnesota for at least 3 points this slate. And now, conversely, if you want to go back to the ownerships here again of the centers and the salaries, I think McDavid's going to be incredible. Like I said about McMalkin, I think they're in for a letdown spot. I don't like targeting Carey Price at home. Most logical people shouldn't. Boston have been playing garbage. I think they're in for a letdown spot. Playing against Halak, haven't talked about yet. Playing against Martin Jones, playing against the San Jose Defenders, any way you want to look at that. Plays for Ottawa, playing on a back-to-back, and then we get to another Edmonton option. So, like, you get my point here. McDavid and Eichel are just the resounding options to me this slate for cash. And now in GPP, even better, just stack the first lines of both and just roll with them. Get in Clefbaum and Ristolainen and you're set. Because guys like Yamamoto and Palmerville offer so much discount that you don't even have to worry about what you're going to do in terms of spending down. So if you don't want to take a real goaltender with that, you don't have to. You can spend down on goalie too and get an extra get your fill as really, because you need your 3 teams, right? Get that third team player as like a ridiculous option. Like a Panarin, for example, is something that comes to mind. Another really high-scoring game. McDavid and Eichel, get them into as many cards as you can this slate, especially for cash. But I think multiple points are to be had from both of those guys, and the same can be said on FanDuel. Now, what's crucial about this, especially on FanDuel and especially paying down at wingers and at least one of the defenders, is that Connor McDavid's salary over here is so obscene that this is the only way you can do it. And thankfully, it's still super, super, super viable. Like, honestly, I wasn't going to do this until I saw how viable spending down at winger was this slate. And by doing so, allowing you to get 2 really random, but in my opinion, again, the better center options for the slate, because like you're not affording McDavid unless you're spending down at basically everywhere, including your second centerman spot. And I say spending down as in not taking another $8K plus salary. I really, really like McDavid this slate. And GPPs, fire up as much as McDavid's line as you can with Yamamoto and the Nuge. It's a really interesting stack in tiers. We'll get to that too, but I'm huge in Edmonton tonight, and that, like, honestly, I can't imagine many people wanting to stack the Edmonton Oilers and Buffalo Sabres tonight. Can you? Really? Like, if you're like, stand up, go walk and look in front of a mirror if you thought that was a reality, and really ask yourself and look deep in the eyes, are a lot of people really going to be owning the McDavid line 1 with the Buffalo line 1 and with those 2 incredibly viable centers? Like, honestly, as soon as you click any of the Pittsburghs, the Bergeron, the Seguin, you can't go this route. It's over. It's done. You can't take both these guys with one of those. I really like this. I think it's super viable, and probably one of my favorite routes to go this slate for a GPP is to play the Oilers and the Sabres. And that's gross. Oh my God, that's disgusting. I barely got that out. But yeah, like again, this is going to be really hard for me to say. But Cam Talbot's nice. GPP, fire that up. 7.8 against the team that's coming in on a back-to-back. It's already not super offensive. Yeah, at home. Oh, God, that's gross. Again, that's really gross to even try and think about playing Cam Talbot. But he's been on fire in this last couple of games against two of the better. No, let me rephrase that. Against the two best wingers in the league in Patrick Kane and Alex Ovechkin. And he kept them both to one goal. So yeah, I have no issue with Talbot. He's probably my favorite GPP goalie of the night just because he is in such good form and he will be so low owned. Now, in terms of, I think McDavid's going to draw tons of ownership, obviously, but at the same time, I really don't know if people know how to get at him. I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes made trying to reach McDavid's salary, especially on FanDuel, and people will be stacking really suboptimal lines trying to get McDavid in there. So yeah, let's say 4-2-5-2 Edmonton. Talbot still does great from his salary. Oh, and like if they start Stalick, yes, all day. Fire up that McDavid. Every format, highest owned player of the slate, best player of the slate. He gets the Rob Diamond seal of approval. And you're not going to hear me say that very often about Connor McDavid. That's for damn sure. I am not a fan. I am a Connor McDavid hater to the 9th degree. So this is taking a lot for me to come out and say Connor McDavid should absolutely smash tonight. 5-2 Edmonton. Connor McDavid's going to get 4 points tonight. Yeah, 4 points. Next game, Ottawa at Air. You know what? You can play Craig Anderson if you want. Other than that, skip this game. Just exit out. Do whatever you have to do. If you want to game stack it, go ahead and game stack it. I'm not going to stop you, but this is like easily the grossest game of the night. And like, there's no reason to think about game stacking this game when you can already take the Buffalo Sabers as like the huge gross option of the night. Like, there's just no reason to lower yourself to this standard to try and achieve something. So yeah, you didn't get the message. I can't stand this game. I think it's literally garbage. Like I said, Craig Anderson's okay. Like the fact that Rant is 8K is laughable. The poor guy's only played like 3 games this season, so like, yeah, wow, okay. Barely got over 5 against Chicago again when they were on their. Oh, he beat Tampa. We better freaking get him up to 8K, boys. Get her up there. Don't want to leave that hanging. Jeez. All the DraftKings players will sneak on that one. What a horrible play. Yeah, again, like, wow. Has Ekman Larson even been doing anything from that 10-1? Like, yeah. He managed 1 assist from 11 goals. And he plays first line, and probably a ridiculous amount of minutes. Sorry. Like, that's just not on anymore. Like, there's too many reasons to look past this game tonight as just like a garbage crap game. And like the fact is they could all score. This could like score 3-2 kind of game, and it probably wouldn't affect your exposures at all if you stick on the Columbus and the Buffaloes and like the cheap values that I've been showing you here, the Pittsburghs. Like this 3-2 won't matter unless one line gets more than one of the goals. Then we have to slowly start like one of the more ownable lines. Let's say like the first or second lines in either team. If they start scoring goals with an S, then we kind of have to pay attention, be a little bit concerned. But like, there's just nothing to target. Nothing. Look at these averages. Like these are averages for defenders that cost 3.5K. So yeah. What are we even doing? Oh my God. There's a 4 and he costs 5K. Yeah, not interested. I'd rather take Chara and know that Chara is on a much better team in a much better situation to win. So yeah, fade this game. I don't even want to make a prediction. Yeah, I'll say 3-2 Ottawa, just because Ottawa's jerks. Next game on the slate. Glad to move on from that one. Philadelphia at Anaheim. It's actually too bad. There isn't really a lot to talk about this game either. Despite Philadelphia having the worst goalie in hockey with Brian Elliott, poor Michael Neuvirth is probably the better option of the three. But the poor guy can't get anything going. So yeah, I'm really not interested in this game either. Though there are some options like Pravov is an option. He isn't my favorite play by any means. Like the Flyers have been playing so bad that there's just no point to even look at any of them. Like Simmons is supposed to be in this range with Craig Smith and the cash range, where if he's under 5K, you can play him. And it's just like, wow, those are bad numbers. And like, look at I know Boone Jenner had a bad game there the other night too, but like he's still winning people's slates and he's not putting up zeros. Pitlick scored a goal from his salary. Like, yeah, like there's legitimate numbers coming from these players. I know Craig Smith's absolutely flames, so we don't even have to worry about that. Yeah, what a god of cash, the god of cash, Craig Smith. So yeah, I think you could probably get away with taking some Anaheim tonight. In particular, I think whoever they end up starting as their goaltender is super, super viable and probably one of my favorite plays of the slate simply because Philadelphia are just absolutely brutal at the moment. The thing is that Anaheim just aren't very offensively minded. So even with Philadelphia's garbage defense, I don't know how many Anaheim are still going to be able to put on the board, especially in comparison to all the other games that could shoot out. Like they're going to need to put up 5 goals to have any hope to compete with any of these other names. And like they're not the most expensive names on the board, obviously, like Rickard Rakeel, but at the same time, like these averages are just so bad. So like I'm not I guess he's been half viable there. Yeah, I actually, you know what? The more I think about it, the more I really like Rickard Rakeel too. I would use him in cash. I would use Rickard Rakeel. Let me confirm that with my self validation method. I would definitely use Rickard Rakeel in cash at only 5.5K. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Who would I drop? Probably Pitlick. Yeah, I think I like that a little bit more. Way more. I don't like targeting Carey Price. So yeah, this just feels way better. Not playing against the goaltender, 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 playing against the goaltender, but he's McJesus and playing back to back, who also happens to be back to back. Absurdly cheap, considering he's probably playing line one, if not line 2, line 1 in some form of combination. So yeah, I really like that. In terms of Anaheim, I'd like to see them win 4-0, 4-1, that kind of thing. I'd like to take John Gibson or Ryan Miller. Whatever happens, I plan on doing it. But yeah, Rickard Rakeel, my new addition to cash, just from talking things through. I really like him. And let's take a look at him over here. Where are we? Next game. There we go. Yeah, I like Gibson's salary over here an awful lot too. Oops, sorry, that's what I meant to do right there. You can see falls below, and like if it's Ryan Miller, yeah, sounds good. I guarantee. Oops, wrong one. I bet he's super cheap down here too. 7.8. Yeah, that's too cheap for the Anaheim Ducks goalie. So let's take a look at Rakeel over here. See what his price is. 6.9 is a little bit more expensive. Way more expensive. So yeah, I'm not really interested in that because I know comparatively at the 7K range, there's still lots of really good options around there that I would rather take, such as Evander Kane or stacking McDavid with the Nuge or spending up to a little bit of Cam in my life, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, where am I? Philly, Anaheim. Let's say 4-1 Anaheim. I like that. Final game of the slate. We have the Rangers taking on the Sharks in the Shark Tank in San Jose. I think in terms of the Sharks, they're excellent for GPP, horrible for cash. I'm not really looking to target Henrik Lundqvist anytime. I think he's still a super viable goaltender, but just not good enough to win you anything, but good enough to make you lose if you try and go against him. Now, if I was to spend anywhere on the Sharks, it's absolutely on Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson. Get them together, one or the other in cash, preferably Burns, not just preferably. It's going to have to be Burns, if anyone, and I don't know how many people will be able to spend up to $7K after they've taken a couple of plus 7.5K salaries at center. So yeah, that's why I like spending down a little bit on Eichel and on the wingers, and that especially if you drop that down to Strawman at 2.9. Burns is absolutely accessible from that salary. So yeah, because I just don't think a lot of people will spend up to him. That's really my take from this game. I still think it's probably going to be a 5-2 San Jose win. I'd rather, like I said, play them in GPP where you're able to stack like the entire power play. I think that's one of my more favorable stacks of the slate, especially San Jose's power play 1 with Vander Kane, Burns, Karlsson, Couture, and Pavelski. If you can get all those guys in with some Strawman, some Pitlick, and some Simon, you're flying, especially if you're using the Strawman, Pitlick, and Simon in cash. That really allows you to kind of double down in a scenario where if they help you in one, they're going to help you in both. And that's really how you win in DFS. So make correlative cards, not cards that are going to hurt each other. When one wins, you want them all to win. So yeah, that is really my take for that. Like I said, I'm going to say 5-1, 5-2 San Jose, 4-1, something like that. But I really do prefer the defensive options for San Jose. Even going down to Vlasic, I think is really sharp. I think he's in lots of viable opportunities to playing on the second line and first line. Or I guess, he's dropped down to third now. Wow. Okay, I take that back a little bit. I still like him, but not as much anymore. So yeah, let's I think it's time for some tiers. What do you guys think? Quickly jump over some tiers. This has gone on way long enough as per usual. No, I don't want to send that over yet. You'll see my awesome tiers cards. I think there's really, I think I've cracked the code tonight. I'm not going to be sharing it with anyone outside of my Slack. So if you're looking to figure out how to play tiers tonight, the super stack, there is a super stack in here. And if you hit me up on the Slack chat for getting this far, I'll hit you with the secret super stack. And obviously, it's not a full cards. We don't give full cards over at RotoPros. We give skeletons and keep it industry friendly. But yeah, let's jump right into this. McDavid, Malkin, Pastrnak, Seguin. Don't target Carey Price at home. Boston playing garbage. Malkin in for a letdown game. That is simple. Tier 2, Palmieri, Bergeron, Kessel, Panarin. We're going to leave this one open because it's really confusing, and it only really comes together when we're further down the lane. The third one here, we have Forsberg, Hall, Couture, Crosby, Burns. So this is where we kind of have to start deciding, are we going to play Palmieri and Hall together against Tampa Bay? Not really smart for cash. Are we going to do Couture with something further down the line since there's nothing there? Or maybe some Brent Burns with something further down the line? Now, to me, there's only really one way to go about this. And the first one is super straightforward. It has to be Panarin. Going up against Detroit, who are absolutely garbage at home. Yeah, I'll take me some Panarin. And then in this tier, it's either going to be Forsberg or Burns, one or the other. Now, the reason for that is because later on down, see, they're taking Letang here, which kind of kills your Pittsburgh stack. So this is a spot where it's like, okay, we can go Atkinson and double here, or we can start a little Eichel, which I think is the better option for cash. And obviously, we're going to have to do something with that further down here too. So let's go back to tier 2. Since that Columbus stack is killed, we know we can't take Columbus there unless we're just doing it to be diversifying ourselves. So for cash, this is fine. I like the way we're going right now. For tier 3, let's make it Forsberg. So tier 5, Aho, Klingberg, Parise, Skinner, Goudreau, Hertl, Kane. Now, this goes back to the previous tier. And basically what you want to do here is take Jeff Skinner, stack against Calgary. I think Klingberg works as well. Again, I don't really want to target Carey Price, but you can stack that with the previous Dallas. I'm not going against Halak, just not interested in that, and I'm not taking someone on a back-to-back. And Evander Kane and Hertl are both interesting, but they're more interesting for GPP and the stacks you can make because they don't really stack with anything else unless you went with Brent Burns in the previous year, and then you can or Brent Burns or Couture, and you can kind of rotate those 4 in and out. But yeah, I prefer taking the Jeff Skinner and going up against Calgary. I think that's way more viable. Now this is a little bit tougher tier 6. Anders Lee, Nuge, Shabbat, Jamie Benn, Duchesne, Suter, Monahan, Kachuk. Monahan is viable, except you don't really want to take Monahan or Kachuk going against Eichel and Skinner here. That's fairly GPP-ish. Suter's on a back-to-back. Duchesne plays for Ottawa. I don't mind Jamie Benn, except he's going up against Montreal at home. Shabbat plays for Ottawa. I'm not really interested. So it's basically, I'm not interested in going with Anders Lee either against Pittsburgh. It's between stacking Nuge with McDavid or taking Jamie Benn to kind of get a piece of that Dallas. And I think it's pretty obvious you should be trying to stack the Nuge here just to get that in with Connor McDavid, the best play of the slate. Next tier, Giordano, Subban, Getzlaf, Larkin, Arvidsson, Granlund, Gensel, Stahl. I think it's between PK Subban and Ryan Getzlaf. I think I like PK Subban a lot more because Ryan Getzlaf's going to be dealing with the really good lines of Philly. And it's the really bad lines of Philly that get beat, not the good lines. So I'm looking at Subban here for cash. And then for tier 8, you can go anyone really isn't cash viable. So basically, what you kind of want to be doing from this point in tier 7 and tier 8 is trying to stack them together because there's a few that do work, such as you'll see there is a where is it? Is it different tier? No, the Calgary's there, the Lindholm and Giordano. You can do that if you want, even though it goes against Calgary. It's more GPP-ish. Basically, what I'm doing in this tier for cash is I'm going Ferland. I don't really like it very much at all. I think that you can go Zucker just for his role, or you can go Giroux just because he's Claude Giroux. But the only real cash that makes sense here is Ferland, and it's because he takes so many shots. Just a lot more shots than anyone else in this tier. So yeah, that's really my take here for tiers. The last two are kind of iffy, but yeah, that is really my take for the slate. I don't think I really missed anything. NFL was a disaster this week, and if you notice my bankroll, obviously I got all my hockey exposure in for the night, but like I literally lost $500 this weekend in NFL. It was an absolute disaster. I don't even know where to begin. So much Azuma, having Tyler Boyd and James Conner in all the wrong places. So yeah, it was just a really, really tough way to go about the NFL weekend, and I lost a lot of the greatness that I've been making throughout the week. So yeah, you may also notice the back of my wall here. I for summer and winter, the sun sets right on my window, and it sets literally like in two different corners of my room. So obviously for winter, my bed's behind me, and you can see this was the wall that originally that people are supposed to be seeing for recording. It's my soccer and scarf wall, and medals are up there too. I have a few national medals, some interesting scarves, some jerseys that are personal, and ones that are, you'll notice my my Liverpool, the Canadian national jersey, Marseille, Chelsea, the Spanish. That's in my Twitter profile there, that one right there. So yeah, New Jersey Devils off your side here. So yeah, I collect some jerseys. I have more. They're just not on the wall right now. But yeah, I wanted to show you that too. But thanks a lot for tuning in. RotoPros.com. I'm Rad Rob Diamond on Twitter, Sir Robert 6 on all the main sites. Get at me with any questions. I hope everyone liked this. And as always, like, subscribe, comment, and check the timestamps if you have anything you want to jump ahead to. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone. Take care. Good luck. Much love.